And in this particular case, sir, one of the things that you did was that you took on you took on a treatment role with regard to the defendant, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Sir, isn't it true that on a separate occasion you actually provided the defendant with a gift?
No.
Well, sir, do you remember providing her with a book called Erroneous Zones?
Yes.
And that was something that you provided to her, right?
It was mailed to her, yes.
Which means you provided it to her, correct?
Yes.
And you provided it to her because at that point you believed that she was depressed, right?
No.
Well, let's take a look at what your testimony was. See if this refreshes your memory.
Yes, that is what I said, but actually that book is not...
Sir, that was the question. Isn't it true that you said that the reason you provided it to her was because she was depressed?
I said this here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're conducting an evaluation at this point, correct?
Yes.
And providing an evaluation, as part of providing this evaluation, you're also providing a self-help book, right?
Yes.
And this self-help book talks about positive and practical advice for breaking free from the trap of negative thinking and enjoying life to the fullest, right?
Yes, that was for her low self-esteem.
Right, and this is by somebody named Dr. Wayne, or written by somebody named Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, correct?
Yes.
It also talks about if you're plagued by guilt or worry and find yourself unwittingly falling into the same old destructive patterns, then Erroneous Zones is the book for you, right?
Yes.
How is providing a self-help book really doesn't come under the auspices or under the coverage, if you will, of an evaluation, does it?
Not necessarily.
Well, no, not necessarily means it doesn't, right?
No.
And but you were there to try to assess her or evaluate her as it pertained to this particular case, right?
Yes.
And you would agree that if you were there to do that, and now you're trying to help her, there seems to be a little bit of the blurring of the lines there, don't you agree?
No, I don't.
Well, on the one hand, you want to help her, don't you? By giving her that self-help book, yes or no?
Yes, it wouldn't be bad. Yes, I helped her.
And on the other hand, you're to provide an impartial evaluation in this case, right? That's what the code says, right?
I didn't read the book to her. I sent her the book.
Right. But you were the one that actually provided it to her so that she could read it, right?
Yes, she was unable to get it on her own.
I'm not asking you whether or not she could get it on her own. The fact that she couldn't get it on her own, that made you upset enough to go out and buy it for her, right?
No, it didn't make me upset. I did what I did for many people and recommended
Well, I'm not
a book.
asking about many people. I'm asking about this particular case. Because you said that she couldn't get it, you went out of your way to get it and then send it to her, right?
Correct.
That required you to go buy the book, right?
Yes.
That required you to put it in whatever container there was and mail it to her, right?
No, I ordered it online.
You ordered it online. Once you received it, it went to her, correct?
It was sent directly to her through Amazon.
And when you ordered it online, that's with money coming out of your pocket, right?
Yes.
So now, not only are you sending her something, you're in a sense giving her money, aren't you?
Didn't look at it that way. I gave her a book.
Well, you're not looking at it that way, but that's what happened. You gave her money, and you gave her a book that cost you money, right?
Yes.
How much did that book cost you?
$9.
So here you are buying her a gift that's $9, right?
No, it was not a gift.
Oh, did she give it back to you?
She offered it back to me.
No,
actually.
I'm not asking you if she offered it back to you. She never gave it back to you, right?
I didn't ask for it back.
Did I ask you whether or not you asked for it back?
So what are you asking?
I'm asking you whether or not isn't it true that she never gave it back to you, right?
She offered it back to me.
I'm not asking you whether or not she offered it to you. You understand that's not my question. Oh. You understand that, right?
Yes.
My question is, isn't it true that the book was never returned to you? Right?
Correct.
And so you did this because you believed, or for whatever reason, you started to like her, right?
No.
Oh, so you dislike her.
I didn't say that either.
So you do like her then?
I can't answer that question, true, yes or no.
Well, why not? You spent how many? You went to see her on 12 separate occasions, right?
Depends what you mean by like.
I'm asking you, isn't it true that you went to see her on 12 separate occasions,
As
right?
part of my role to evaluate her, yes.
Yes or no? You did go see her on 12 separate occasions, correct?
Yes.
And you spent many hours with her, right?
Yes.
And you talked about a variety of things, right?
Yes.
You spoke about her relationship, right? With Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Right? You spoke about previous relationships, right?
Yes.
And you spoke about some sexual issues that were involved with her and Mr. Alexander, correct?
Yes.
You spoke about a lot of things during those 12 visits, right?
Right.
How many hours did you spend with her?
Between 25 and 30 hours.
And during that time, you're saying that it was just a mere passage of time, it wasn't because you liked her, that you decided to get that book for her.
Typically, when
Yes
I
or
had...
no? Is that why you decided to get her the book?
Could you repeat your question again?
Isn't it true that even after all this time and after all these visits, the reason you got her this book, you're saying is just because there was no reason?
There was a reason.
And the reason was that you wanted to give her something, right?
No.
Well, you did give her something, didn't you?
Yes.
And there is a code of ethics, correct?
Yes.
And that code of ethics prohibits you from providing gifts to somebody like the defendant, doesn't it?
It wasn't a gift.
Sir, isn't it true that it went over and it got to her, didn't it?
She was suicidal at the time.
I'm not asking you whether or not she was suicidal, right? Am I asking you that?
No, you're not.
And if she was suicidal, you're not the treating physician, are you?
I'm not treating her.
Well, if she was suicidal, it was somebody else's responsibility to take care of it, right?
Judge, objection. Can we ask the state not to yell at the witness? It's not necessary. Please.
So you have this, what appears to be a relationship with this individual that you feel is appropriate that you buy her at least one gift, correct?
I bought her a self-help book.
You bought her a book, which is a gift, correct?
Well, I don't characterize it that way, but you may.
Well, no, I'm asking whether, we've talked about this, you paid for it, right?
Yes.
You never got it back, right?
Right?
And it was for a purpose that you believe was to help the defendant, right?
Yes.
And so if you're now helping the defendant, you're there assisting her, aren't you?
I did not conduct therapy.
I'm not asking you if you conducted therapy. I'm asking, the question is, isn't it true that you were then there to assist her? You are assisting her, aren't you? By giving her this book, right?
Okay?
Is that a yes?
Yes.
No, not I guess. Isn't that a yes?
Yes.
And when you gave her this book, your expectation was that she would get better from whatever problem you perceived, right?
My expectation was that she would read the book.
Right. And the reason you wanted her to read the book was so that she could address in a meaningful fashion whatever issues you saw.
Yes.
And that's to help her, right?
Yes.
And that is the problem. That creates an issue of your objectivity in this case, doesn't it?
I didn't think so.
I know you didn't think so, but on the one hand, you can see that you are helping her to get better, and on the other hand, you have to be impartial, right?
Yes.
And that creates an ethical dilemma for you, doesn't it?
Well, it didn't at the time, and it's something that I tended to routinely do, so I didn't see it as an ethical dilemma.
You didn't see it as an ethical dilemma, but you can see that there's an appearance here that you're trying to help her, right?
Yes, from your perspective, yes.
Not from my perspective, from anybody's perspective. Isn't it true that from anybody's perspective, you are trying to help the defendant get better with regard to whatever issue she has?
Objection, speculation is what other people may think.
Could you repeat your question?
Isn't it true that from whatever perspective is taken, you are helping the defendant?
Yes, by providing her with the book, yes.
And so then that creates this issue that may affect, or indicates that it may affect the way you view your evaluation in this case, doesn't it? There's that appearance.
No, it does not.
There is no appearance of that here at all.
Well, there may be an appearance to you, but
No, I'm not asking to me, sir. I'm asking,
Objection to let him finish the answer that he had. There may be an appearance to you, but, and then he was interrupted.
Sustained. You may finish
Go
your
ahead.
response.
It may appear that way to you, but based upon her low self-esteem and the fact that she was threatening to harm herself, or was at least contemplating harming herself, I felt that by providing her with that book, it would allow my evaluation to go on.
and so it's better for you to provide her with a self-help book, in your perspective now, as opposed to mine, than to go to the authorities and say, there is this bigger issue of threatened suicide. That's what you believed.
That was communicated through her attorney.
Sure. That's what you believe.
Yes.
Do you consider yourself an impartial third party in this case?
I try to be at all times.
Do you always develop such a fond relationship with the individuals you evaluate?
I wouldn't characterize our relationship as being fond. I'm an impartial evaluator.
Do you still think that it was appropriate to purchase a gift for Jodi while evaluating her, or do you feel you stepped over an ethical boundary?
There is no ethical guideline regarding purchasing a self-help book for a client that you've just met for the first time. No further discussion of the book occurred. I just happen to be a compassionate person. I've done this with other clients that I've evaluated if I feel it would help them. But since I can't do therapy and I am a compassionate person and I have been doing therapy and evaluations for 35 years, I feel that that is not at all stepping over the boundary.
So one of the things that you told us was that you were, when you went to see the defendant, one of the things that happened was that you gave her a book, right?
That is correct.
And you said that you were a compassionate man. Do you remember saying that in response to a juror's
Yes, I
question?
have been accused of that by many.
I'm not asking you if you've been accused of anything. I'm asking you whether or not, in response to a juror's question, you said that you were a compassionate man.
Yes, I did.
And with regard to compassion, isn't that just sympathy for an other individual and whatever situation they may be in?
Perhaps.
Well, no, you're the one that used the word compassion.
So I'm not sure that compassion and sympathy mean the same thing.
Well, perhaps if we take a look at a definition from Webster and see whether or not it coincides with yours, all right?
Okay.
Take a look at exhibit number 551. It has a couple of definitions of compassion. Doesn't it say that compassion could be sympathy for the distress of another?
Yes.
And so when you said that you had compassion, you told us that you had sympathy for the defendant, didn't you?
Well, that's Webster's definition. I use the word compassionate.
Right, and we just talked about how Webster defines compassion, right?
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope.
Overruled.
Are you saying that you have a different definition of compassion than Webster's?
I'll go by Webster's definition.
All right, so Webster then talks about sympathy for the distress of another, right?
That's correct.
And so you said that you gave the book to this defendant after your first meeting with her, right?
Correct.
You see that?
Absolutely.
It says sympathetic consciousness of others' distress together with a desire to alleviate it, right?
Yes.
So what this says is that you now want to alleviate the defendant's distress, right?
My nature is to help people who are in trouble.
And that's therapeutic, isn't it?
No, it is not.
Well,
it is a desire on my part. Therapy is a process. There was no process of therapy conducted.
It's a desire on your part. And that's part of the bias or the thoughts that you take into this evaluation, right?
My training of 35 years has taught me not to inject any bias whatsoever in the impartial evaluations that I conduct.
A desire to alleviate someone's distress is an indication of sympathy, isn't it?
According to Webster,
How about according to you?
the sympathy for me means more like feeling sorry for someone.
Okay, so you felt sorry for the defendant after the first meeting then?
No, I didn't. I felt a sense of compassion.
A sense of compassion means that you felt sorry for her, isn't it?
Objection as to the answer.
I saw a person who was having a great deal of difficulty. I felt that it would help my evaluation if I sent her this book, and that was the full extent of my interaction with her that in any way could be considered therapeutic.
I'm not asking about the book right now. I'm asking about your feelings towards the defendant. That's what I'm asking about right now. And those feelings that you exhibited for the defendant were such that you felt a desire to alleviate whatever distress she was under.
I did so by getting her a book.
But the answer is you did feel that way, right?
My initial impression was that this was someone who would benefit from that book.
Your initial impression after talking to her was that you felt sorry for her.
Not necessarily sorry for her. I felt that this was a woman who was alone and isolated, and by reading that book, it might help with the accuracy of my report and make her more likely to be able to come to terms with an issue that she was protecting herself from psychologically by creating an alternative reality.
So you feel that your role is that of a support group then, right?
No.
Well, you said she was alone. You just said that. That you
That's
believe
my-
that she was alone and isolated. Did you just not say that?
I did say that.
And if somebody is alone and isolated, you try to take care of that, didn't you?
I offered her, I gave her a book that I felt would make my evaluation more accurate and more complete.
Didn't you just tell me that you felt that she was alone and isolated after the first meeting?
Objection as to the answer.
Yeah, if that's what I said, that's what I said.
And because of that, you decided to do something about it, right?
Yes.
And that doesn't have anything to do with anything other than what you're feeling at the time, does it?
No, because I've been trained to disconnect any feelings that I might have from the objectivity of an evaluation. This is something that we learn how to do, and I've been doing it long enough to know that sending someone a book that I think might be helpful for them, which in the long run would help me and the accuracy of my evaluation, is not a situation where I'm creating therapy or giving them support, because nothing was ever talked about other than once she told me she was reading the book.
I know you say that your feelings were of no concern, but if you had these feelings for her when you first started to talk to her, are you now telling us that those feelings changed the second time?
We are trained extensively to deal with our own personal feelings and to disregard them and put them aside in order to conduct an objective evaluation, which is precisely what I did, and I had no further feelings of compassion once I ordered the book for her, because I felt I discharged the duty that I felt I needed to do for this particular person, and that was it.